I had the opportunity early on in my career, well before I ever knew I'd be lucky enough to meet you and Marshall and work with you and consider you friends, to read What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And that is so true. So the skills that maybe made me really good at the bedside every day weren't always necessarily applicable to the next role. Although I've tried to kind of pick and choose which ones, team building, things like that, that would be applicable. But I had to be able to kind of leave the past role behind. And particularly before being CEO here at Rady Children's, I was Chief Operating Officer at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. And that is a very different role. And I had to come here and remember that what got me here won't get me there, and to be able to have that transition. And I think those lessons in life and get to know people like you and Marshall have really helped me succeed in these roles.
Well, that's very generous of you to say. You've been a person who's been engaged in a very deep and thoughtful and empathic way in reading your audience and getting to know the context and the culture of the place that you're serving, whether it's Atlanta or in San Diego. That's a very powerful skill, particularly for a person who might have spent most of their career in a specific technical area. You have the IQ and the EQ going at an amazing rate here, Patrick. When you think about the different groups that you're influencing and impacting, I remember at one point you were talking about the 4 or 5 Ps in terms of how you were organizing. You're thinking about people and strategy and purpose. What are some of the tools that you would offer to someone who's first stepping into a chief executive's role?
Yeah, and that's a definite transition when you step in. And I think, and I did get advice, thankfully, from other CEOs. And then I was fortunate enough to meet you and Marshall relatively early in the transition. And the listening piece was key. And I think resisting the urge to come in and feel like I must make a mark right now. But this place had survived for 65 plus years before I got here, and not only survived, but thrived and become a national presence. So recognizing that I'm here to help it get to the next level, but there's a lot of history and knowledge here that I need to listen to and learn to. And my job wasn't to make San Diego Atlanta. It may be to bring some of the things from there and here. So listening was key. And then also recognizing, and this is something I learned from you and Marshall, it even drove it more to me, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. And that's not why I'm here. And that sometimes when you've been through medical school and you've gone through 7 years of postgraduate training, you tend to forget that, no, I really am not the smartest guy in the room. That lesson of that my job isn't to have an answer immediately. And that when you come in as the CEO, you think, I have to have a good answer. I have to have a smart answer. And I really did learn that from you guys more, you and Marshall, to say that, no, I don't. And it's okay for me just to listen and to not necessarily have the solution, but to then say, how do we get the right people here to help you solve whatever problem it is you're trying to solve, and make sure that they have the tools and the resources.
That's a disarming and vulnerable and wonderfully humble place to come from. I've often thought about it as being that incredible combination of hubris that makes you believe that you can have a world-class organization, and you need to do that with and through the genius of the organizational people you can bring in on the one hand, and then also then the humility to know that we can't do it without that contribution of others. And there's so much to be learned.